If you are walking in Estonia as a foreigner or somebody who doesn't live here, somebody that you don't know, a stranger, smiles at you on public, then there are two possibilities. Either there's something wrong with you or there's something wrong with them. Hello everybody, my name is Manan. Welcome to my channel. Today we are going to talk about a very interesting topic. I had this idea a while back and I was thinking, what are some things that are considered absolutely normal around the world in different countries, but these things are considered absolutely crazy in Estonia? I put this question to expat group that we have and I got a lot of interesting answers. So I'm going to be sharing with you 12 things that are considered normal in many different other countries, but not in Estonia. In Estonia, if you do them, probably crazy. Let's do this. Before I begin, there are two very important things that I want to make sure that you understand. Firstly, these are gross generalizations. Not everybody is like that. I mean, there are a lot of people around the world who are Estonians and they might be very different from these observations. These are just mine and from very other expats. And number two, a very important thing that I want to mention again is that these things might not just be only true for Estonia. So it's entirely possible that the country you are from, I don't know whether it is the US, a part of US, or maybe Finland or Sweden, these things might be true for you as well. Let's go ahead. Number one, not taking off your shoes indoors. This is a blasphemy. And it is, well, quite important for Estonians as well. Whenever you go inside the home of anybody in Estonia, it is customary, it is important that you take off your shoes. Shoes are considered dirty. And it is true because outside generally in Estonia, when we have winter, when we have snow, your shoes are really going to be wet, dirty, dripping with water. So absolutely it is important that there is a separate section of your home where you drop off your shoes and your jackets and all these things. Now this is not entirely true for the country where I come from, Pakistan. It is generally a hot country. We don't have carpets. Since it is generally not so wet, we bring our shoes inside. But I am seeing this trend slowly coming up that people are trying to be more considerate and they are saying that we should keep our shoes outside. What do you think? Let me know. Is it good or is it bad, or does it depend on the specific culture or the climate of the place where you are? But in Estonia, no way, Jose. Number two, whistling indoors. This might be very strange for people who are coming from other countries, but whistling is kind of thing that people generally like to do. I mean, I was used to doing that. I remember the first time that I got the indication that it is definitely not considered okay in Estonia, especially whistling indoors. I was in my university and I was whistling something and then my friend just looked at me like I had considered blasphemy or something, and then she was shocked. I said, what happened? And then she said, you know that whistling is supposed to bring bad luck, that whistling can turn your house on fire. Well, that is a superstition, but is still followed quite religiously, pun intended. Number three, and that is sort of like a big one, but inviting somebody for dinner at your home. Now this is a big thing. I've talked about this before as well, but generally in Estonia, if somebody is inviting you for dinner at their home, then this means that you are very special. This is not something that you do with your casual acquaintances or even your colleagues or even somebody that you have known for maybe 4 or 5 years. This is a very special occasion that's reserved for a very few people. Estonian home is almost like a very sacred space and no stranger or no person that you absolutely trust is allowed or should be there. This is entirely in contrast with people from other cultures, like for example from Pakistan and South Asia, where people are generally very quick to invite other people to their homes, even to the dinners. That is something quite strange. On the other hand, if you are in a relationship with somebody like an Estonian and they invite you for dinner at their home, that this means that you are in luck and things are really getting serious. Number four, quite a big one for our bros out there, but men hugging and shaking hands. Now usually what I have seen is that men absolutely do not hug. Coming from Pakistan and from South Asian countries where it is very customary for men to hug each other, this seemed quite strange because if you know somebody for such a long time and you're leaving or saying goodbye, then I have this itch to hug that person. But in Estonia, it's an absolute no. I mean, you can still hug the other person if you are a foreigner because, you know, you have this foreigner ticket that you can get away with, but generally, people don't look forward to it. On the other hand, shaking hands is also okay, but not not every day, and it is usually reserved for very, very special occasions. It's entirely possible that you come and you meet someone new and then you only shake their hands that once and not any time else. This is in sharp contrast to where I am from, for example, because one of the things that my parents taught me, that if you are going into any gatherings or there are guests at home, then you go up to them and you shake their hands. For men specifically, you go up and you shake their hands very, very firmly. But another tip that I found when I was talking to my Estonian friends is that Estonians place a lot of emphasis on how you shake their hands. So your handshake should be very, very firm if you are shaking hands, because people don't do that much. So if you do it once, then it's very memorable and you have to be sure that your handshake is firm. Number 5, getting to know your neighbors or interacting with neighbors or getting freely talking to neighbors. That is like, I don't know, maybe it's true for mostly Western countries as well, but like seriously, it is entirely possible that you have lived in a place for more than 10 years and you don't know who your neighbors are, which is, I feel, quite sad. In Estonia, people still know each other because it's such a small place. If you are living here and even if you don't talk to your neighbor, then it is entirely possible that they know your name, they know what you do, and you know what they do as well, because people talk and through acquaintances and everything like that. But generally, there is no culture of community in a specific flat people have abroad or in many other countries, especially in Eastern countries, where there is a whole culture that if somebody comes new into your neighbor, then you greet them and you make sure that they are okay. And sometimes even if a person has just come into their new apartment building, you make sure that you send them food so that they don't have to cook and unpack at the same time. That's just another different culture. Number 6, tea time snacks. Now this is something that a friend told me who is Estonian, and she said that one of her foreign, I think it was probably Indian colleagues, who invited them for a tea break. Now when she thought of like a tea break, she thought that when they would go to their place, they would have just tea or maximum some, like biscuits or something. But when she went there, she saw this whole catalog of snacks that was there. It was nothing short of a full meal. And that is entirely true. And I can wholeheartedly agree to that, because in Pakistan or in India or in any other South Asian or Eastern countries, if somebody is inviting you for a tea break, then it doesn't just mean tea. It means that tea will be one part of it, and you will come and you will see a whole lot of dishes that will be there, because at least for us, this is like, you can't just invite somebody for tea and then just give them tea. It has to be a full-blown preparation of snacks. That is a whole lot of hard work. That's the thing. But in Estonia, no. Tea break is just a tea break. But I don't even think there is a culture of like snacking or tea breaks in Estonia. Please let me know if there is a separate culture, because I know that Estonians do have these specific snacks like vastlakukul and these things, but I don't know if there is something, for example, what Swedish have, fika, if there is something comparable. Number 7, shops opening late, and that is a big one. I have seen that generally in Europe overall as well, and in Estonia as well, that shops are not open very late. And especially if you come from like the Eastern culture, like Pakistan and India and Bangladesh and China and all these places, and I think to a certain extent USA as well, then shops are open very late, especially the food shops, because you can go out anytime, you can order takeaway anytime. So this is kind of like problem. I first found out about this, it was a big shock for me when I went to Germany back in 2012. It was my first trip to Europe, and I was very, very surprised that everything religiously closes at 5 o'clock or maximum 6 o'clock. It was very, very strange. So you had to make sure that you get everything in line and you get everything before the shop closes. Food shops were an exception, I remember, at that time back in Germany, but still they didn't open till very, very late. Number 8, small talk with strangers. Oh my God, this is blasphemy, but yeah, I'm just joking. But generally, overall, small talk is not very common. It's considered weird if somebody just starts talking to you, because there are some situations in other cultures that I've been to, like even in the US, it's very, very common that if you're sitting in a queue, or you're getting in a queue to check in on a flight, or you're in a queue for a grocery shop, then you just chat a few words with the person that you're talking to, or you comment on something, or you just share something. It's considered entirely normal in many, many parts of the world. But here in Estonia, absolutely Absolutely not. I mean, you will see that very, very rarely. And if something like that happens, then you better have a reason. One big reason, of course, is that you're a foreigner and you are not acquainted with the culture here, so you might get a pass. But generally, you will not see that happen at all. Small talk, even in the most professional settings that I have seen, is that it's not generally very common. For example, if you're in a meeting, usually there is a little chit chat about these things before you move on to the work stuff. Generally here you are straight diving into the actual matter. So no messing around. Number 9, and that is the street food culture. I miss that really. I really miss that. And this is something that I have seen in many cosmopolitan cities as well, particularly in the eastern region as well, that there is a whole level of street food, like small miniature shops that you have and that sell stuff. I think a lot of it has been covered by these dark kitchens that you can order from Bolt or these food delivery apps, but still this culture of, like these small places where you can just go in and buy something, that's not very common. I'm pretty sure when I came to Estonia in Tallinn, there's in the university, beside the university, there was this shop that would open a little bit quite late, and you would usually get some small warm items from there as well. And there are a couple of places here and there where you can get these things, but overall I think there is not much culture of street food here in Estonia. I think it probably might have to do with the weather, which is quite harsh for the majority of the year. Yeah, no, this is something that I have seen many expats miss about their own countries and homes as well. But maybe I know that there are some food festivals happening and these things, and maybe with times it changes, and I've seen that changing a little bit as well. Number 10, being emotional in public. Let me give you an example. I remember I was in Germany and I was in the train. I think I was going to Paris, and there was this group of like old Germans who were just talking, and they were very loud, and there was a bunch of older guys and girls, and they were just laughing. Like they were having such a great time, shouting and making jokes. It wasn't rowdy, like it wasn't in a way when you are drunk, but it was just plain old fun. Bunch of guys, probably they were like really old friends, and they were just laughing. Even the people who were just around them, I don't think nobody else really minded them. Some people were even smiling. So that was my first interaction. I've seen something similar in Sweden as well, but in Estonia, it's like a library. Like the whole country is kind of like a library where when you are outside, you shouldn't talk loudly and you shouldn't display your emotions so vividly unless you're drunk or unless it's like 3 a.m. in the old town, then you have an excuse. But generally, no, I don't see this happening a lot. People are generally very cool and calm and keep their emotions to themselves, and we don't see displays of emotion happening. I remember I was on a podcast and I was talking to one like American friend, and she said that she was coming from Tallinn airport, and like she was really excitedly talking to her family who was with her, and I think it was the taxi driver who said that, turning back to them, that you'll probably consider it crazy if you keep talking like that in public as well. And that is sort of like my own experience as well, that if you're talking loudly, if you are excited, then you are turning heads, you're getting attention to yourself, even if it's without any alcohol involved, because it stands out so much. Number 11, and that is the tipping culture. I know that the tipping culture in the US is kind of crazy. It has gone out of hand, and I know that in other countries as well, tipping is usually very, very common, but in Estonia, hardly. I mean, you are not required to tip. There's hardly any opportunity to tip, especially when people are paying with their cards and everything. I know that in the US you get this like big tablet that says, okay, add tip, like 5%, 10%, or like 20%. But in Estonia, the person just comes to you and then they say, this is your bill. I don't even know when I was last given the option to tip. It's kind of hard to tip, because if you want to tip, then you need to carry cash. And if you want to tip, then you have to ask the other person that you want to add something specifically. Maybe it's changing, but tipping culture is, I've seen that almost non-existent here in Estonia. And the final one, and my favorite, is people smiling at you. Now, as I said before, that if somebody smiles at you in public, then either like something is wrong with you, or there is definitely something wrong with them. Of course, it's meant in a humorous manner, but it is actually quite true, because if you look at people generally outside just walking, then you would feel that they are the most serious people on the planet Earth. But I have done the effort of actually talking to many strangers. I know I've talked about this previously as well, that I set a goal of talking to like a stranger every day for like 100 days. And the truth is that even though people don't smile at you, it's very easy to break ice with just a few words. I've also seen that lately, that people smile at me, at least, because because probably they might have seen me somewhere, or they might have seen the YouTube as well. But at least in my neighborhood, I do feel that people know me and people smile at me, but that has come after 7-8 years of living at one place consistently, that people have started to know you. But in general, if you are a foreigner or if you are a tourist who has just come to Estonia, then smiling at somebody or a person smiling at you, that's weird. I have even heard from other Estonians who lived abroad for a while. I think that was one case that a friend told me that she was living abroad. I think it was Western Europe, and she came back here and she was just walking and she was just smiley and chatty, and she was just smiled at a guy. The guy just came up to her and said, "Oh yeah, let's talk." And in her mind, the Estonian lady, this friend was Estonian. It was clearly not meant in that way that, I really like you. But that was like 1% of the case. But I would say that for a majority of the interactions, people don't smile at you. And if they do smile at you, then there is something different. There is something special. Now, a lot of people would tell me that the culture is changing and things are different and people tend to smile at each other. But please know that you are an exception, that this is not the norm, actually. But on the other hand, I've also seen, even in Estonia, there are variations. Like, for example, when I went to the islands, like the Saaremaa and Hiiumaa, these islands, people are generally more cordial and more open, and you see a lot more warmth from those people than, for example, here in cities, for example, like Tallinn. Tartu is also an exception as well, and I think it might be the case because there are so many students and foreigners there already. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please let me know down in the comments what you agree with, what you don't agree with, any observations, anything that you would like to add. I would really like to hear your opinions and thoughts, but please be polite. That's the only thing I ask. If you want to reach out to me, then you can look at the links down in the description. You can write to me on Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn. I wish you all the best. If you have any suggestions for any topics that I should cover, I should talk about more, or you want to talk to me on my podcast, just write down to me or email me. I wish you all the best. Take care. Bye bye.